In resistance training research, it is well established that muscle growth tends to occur more rapidly during the early stages of a resistance training program. Over time, as individuals become more well-trained, the rate of muscle gain naturally begins to slow down. To prevent this stagnation and to continue progressing, it's often recommended that gym goers incorporate more advanced training techniques or adjusting training variables strategically. For instance, research suggests that resistance-trained individuals may benefit from periodically increasing their weekly set volumes, either to target lagging muscle groups or to maximize overall hypertrophy adaptations. Evidence supporting this comes from a 2022 study by Scarpelli and colleagues, which found that tailoring resistance training volumes, specifically by increasing weekly sets by 20% for the quads, resulted in superior muscle growth compared to a fixed volume of only 22 sets per week. Over an 8-week period of unilateral leg exercise, the individualized program achieved a 9.9% increase in the quadricep muscle size compared to a 6.2% increase with the standardized volume. These findings suggest that progressive volume increases may enhance hypertrophy adaptations. Interestingly, however, other studies on this same topic, such as those by Ostrowski and colleagues and Alba and colleagues, reported no significant differences in muscle growth or strength when baseline training volumes were taken into account. Both studies observed inconsistent results when adjusting training volumes relative to baseline. The inconsistent results from these studies underscore the uncertainty regarding whether increasing training volume relative to baseline effectively enhances muscle growth or strength in trained individuals. These variations are particularly evident when considering differences in study design and the specific muscle groups that are tested. Additionally, research on adjusting baseline training volume for muscles other than the quadriceps and for strength improvements are still fairly limited. Now, that's where a recent paper from Moreno and colleagues comes into play. The researchers of this study aim to examine muscle growth and strength adaptations in the elbow flexors, or the biceps, by comparing the effects of simply maintaining participants' usual training volume, or their baseline training volume, to a higher number of sets relative to their baseline. So let's take a look at what they did. The group of researchers here at the University of South Florida recruited 42 recreationally trained men and women between the ages of 18 and 35 to participate in this study. The participants had to have trained their biceps for at least 6 months prior to enrolling in the study. Participants were randomly assigned to have one arm continue with the same number of sets they were accustomed to, directly targeting the biceps each session, while the other arm performed an additional 2 sets per session. So, for example, if a participant had previously been performing 4 sets of bicep curls per session, then one arm simply continued performing 4 sets, while the opposite arm performed 6 sets. All sets of exercise were taken to task failure or to the point at which the participants could no longer perform an additional repetition with good form, focusing within an 8 to 12 rep range. All sets were performed using the unilateral standing dumbbell curl exercise, and the participants trained 2 times per week for a total of 12 weeks, 8 of which were supervised by the research team and 4 occurred at the participants' gym of choice. The researchers measured bicep muscle thickness across multiple sites, including the 50, 60, and 70% sites, and a 1-rep max strength was also measured pre and post intervention. So what did they find? Well, after the 12-week training intervention, the researchers observed a significant increase in muscle size at each site of the biceps, with muscle thickness increasing by approximately 0.14 to 0.16 centimeters. Interestingly, there were no significant differences observed between the 2 conditions, meaning both conditions increased muscle size to a similar magnitude after the 12 weeks. Similarly, for muscle strength adaptations, researchers observed no significant differences between the 2 conditions. Both conditions increased their 1-rep max strength by about 2 kilograms after the 12-week training period. So, what does this all mean for me? Well, some data suggests that periodically increasing set volume can enhance muscle growth. The current study, however, found no advantage of prescribing additional sets compared to sticking with an individual's baseline training volume. Instead, the extra 2 sets per session, or 4 weekly sets, seemed kind of redundant for stimulating further muscle growth. In other words, it seems as though the participant's baseline training volume was already sufficient stimulus to maximize muscle growth adaptations in these previously trained lifters. It's also possible that the additional sets could have been more effective if they were applied to a different exercise targeting the biceps. For example, something like a preacher curl, rather than adding just more sets of the same exercise, which was the standing dumbbell curl. Another option which might have helped stimulate muscle growth more effectively could be distributing the additional sets across 3 training sessions instead of 2. However, this could not be answered with the current study. So, what are my practical takeaways from this paper? In summary, the study found that increasing the number of sets beyond baseline did not lead to greater muscle growth in recreationally trained individuals compared to sticking with baseline training volume. Both training conditions were similarly effective in promoting significant increases in muscle thickness and 1 rep max strength for the biceps. In the context of training to maximize muscle growth, there are a multitude of ways that we can adjust our training in order to avoid growth plateaus. It seems that simply adding more sets of the same exercise, while an easy adjustment to make, might not be the most effective change if you're already performing enough sets for a given muscle group. Instead, consider progressing through other strategies like increasing load or the weight you lift, adding additional training sessions, or including different exercises that target the muscles in a different way. So that's it, folks. Thank you so much for watching. And if you found this video informative, make sure that you like this post, subscribe to my channel for more evidence-based content. And if you have any questions about muscle growth and training, feel free to leave me a comment below.